High in the Sierra Nevada mountains, beneath a stark and unforgiving blanket of snow, lies a story that chills the bones of American history. It is a tale of hope and desperation, where dreams of a brighter future were suffocated by the merciless hand of nature. The name Donner Party has since become synonymous with tragedy, resilience, and the unimaginable choices made in the shadow of death. In the spring of 1846, a group of pioneers embarked on a journey that promised prosperity and freedom in the Golden State of California. They were husbands and wives, brothers and sisters, children and elders, all united by a vision of a better life. But what awaited them was a perfect storm of misfortune, miscalculation, and nature's brutal indifference. This story begins with optimism. For these families, the promise of the West was too enticing to resist. Fertile land, new beginnings, and the chance to carve out their piece of the American dream. Yet as they traveled further into the wild, they unknowingly signed a pact with the wilderness, a pact that demanded a terrible price. What began as a hopeful journey westward would descend into a nightmare of starvation, despair, and ultimately, cannibalism. The Donner Party's fate was sealed not by a single misstep, but by a cascade of events that turned dreams to dust, and left their story etched in history as a cautionary tale of hubris, human error, and survival at all costs. Why did they make the decisions they did? What forces, both within and beyond their control, conspired to trap them in the mountains as winter's icy grip closed in? And above all, how far can a person go to survive? These are the questions that linger in the cold winds of the Sierra Nevada, whispering to us through time. The mid-19th century was an era of exploration, expansion, and migration across the American frontier. Following the trails blazed by pioneers before them, thousands of families ventured westward, driven by promises of fertile lands, boundless opportunities, and the dream of manifest destiny. Among those dreamers were the members of the ill-fated Donner Party, who embarked on their journey in the spring of 1846. What began with hopeful optimism would ultimately confront them with the raw, unyielding realities of the American wilderness. The Donner Party was not a single unified group, but a collection of families and individuals banded together for mutual support on the arduous trek west. They hailed from various walks of life, farmers, tradespeople, and laborers, united by their goal to reach the promised bounty of California. Among the leaders were George Donner and James Reed, whose ambitions led them to organize and lead their respective families and companions across the untamed frontier. The journey from Springfield, Illinois to the rich valleys of California was no small undertaking. It involved traversing over 2,000 miles of rugged, uncharted terrain. Pioneers relied on well-established routes like the Oregon and California trails, which, while still perilous, offered guidance through the vast wilderness. However, even these trails were fraught with dangers: scorching deserts, perilous river crossings, and unpredictable weather patterns. The fateful decision that would ultimately seal the Donner Party's doom came when they reached Fort Bridger, a key resupply point on the trail. Here, they were persuaded by Lansford Hastings, a land speculator and self-styled trailblazer, to take an alternate route, known as the Hastings Cutoff. This path promised to shave hundreds of miles off the journey and lead them more directly to California. The Hastings Cutoff had been touted as a quicker, easier route. But in truth, it was a gamble, an untested trail that led through the arid Great Salt Lake Desert and rugged Wasatch Mountains. What the Donner Party did not fully realize was that this so-called shortcut had only been traversed once before and was fraught with obstacles that would cost them precious time, resources, and ultimately their lives. As they moved into the uncharted territory of the cutoff, the challenges began to mount. The desert was a vast, barren expanse, stretching endlessly under the unforgiving sun. Water was scarce, and wagons often bogged down in the deep sands. The arduous crossing of this desert drained the party's oxen and horses, vital for pulling their heavy loads. These delays would prove catastrophic, as winter was fast approaching. Beyond the desert, the Wasatch Mountains presented their own formidable challenges. The party faced narrow, treacherous trails that slowed their progress further. Weeks behind schedule, they rejoined the main California trail near present-day Elko, Nevada, only to find themselves perilously late in the season. The critical window to safely cross the Sierra Nevada was closing rapidly. The Sierra Nevada range was a towering barrier standing between the pioneers and their final destination. Known for its majestic peaks and dense forests, it was also notorious for its harsh winters. Snowstorms in the Sierra Nevada were unpredictable, and snowfall could reach over 20 feet, cutting off trails and making travel impossible. As the Donner Party ascended toward the summit, an early storm trapped them near what is now called Donner Lake, transforming the wilderness into a frozen prison. By the time the Donner Party reached the Sierra Nevada, they were emotionally and physically exhausted. Their supplies were dwindling, and their oxen, which had borne the weight of their journey, were starving and collapsing. The mountains loomed before them like an impenetrable wall, indifferent to their plight. In the shadow of these towering peaks, the group made camp, believing the storm would pass and the trail would reopen. What they did not know was that they would be trapped there for months, as winter's icy grip tightened around them. The wilderness that had promised them freedom and prosperity now offered only isolation and despair. Against this backdrop of rugged terrain and unrelenting cold, the Donner Party faced decisions that would forever etch their story into the annals of American history. The setting itself, remote, hostile, and unforgiving, played a central role in the tragedy that unfolded. The story of the Donner Party is not just one of survival. It is a series of deeply personal tragedies, where families were torn apart and desperation forced them to confront the unthinkable. These accounts reveal the raw, harrowing reality of what unfolded in those frozen mountains. James Reed, a prominent figure among the group, started the journey as a man of wealth and influence, but by the time the party reached the Sierra Nevada, his fortunes had turned. An altercation on the trail escalated when Reed, defending himself, killed a man. The pioneers exiled him, forcing him to continue alone to California while his wife and children remained behind. Reed's absence left his family vulnerable. His wife, Margaret, struggled to keep her children alive as food supplies dwindled and frostbite set in. The Reeds survived on scraps of oxhide and boiled bark. Margaret reportedly cut small pieces of leather into strips and fed them to her children, pretending it was a delicacy to keep their spirits alive. By the time James returned with a rescue party months later, his family was emaciated but alive, a rare beacon of hope in an otherwise grim story. By mid-December, starvation had gripped the camp. A small group of 17 men and women, later known as the Forlorn Hope, set out on foot to seek help. They carried only rudimentary supplies and scant clothing, hoping to cross the mountains and alert rescuers. But as they trudged through waist-deep snow and frigid temperatures, exhaustion and starvation claimed one member after another. Days turned into weeks, and the remaining survivors faced an impossible decision. Without food, and with no hope of reaching civilization before succumbing to the elements, they began to consume the bodies of their deceased companions. According to accounts, the flesh was rationed carefully, and each member of the group avoided eating their own family members, showing a twisted semblance of respect for the dead. By the time they reached safety, only 7 of the original 17 had survived the journey. Their haunted eyes and hollow faces bore witness to the horrors they had endured. Yet their efforts ensured that rescue teams would eventually reach the rest of the Donner Party. The cannibalism process had been mechanical, almost ritualistic, driven by the sheer need to survive rather than malice or cruelty. The frozen bodies were stripped of clothing and left exposed to the biting cold, preserving the flesh as though nature herself had taken on the role of butcher. Small, carefully cut pieces were cooked over weak, sputtering fires, the smell faint but enough to turn stomachs. Survivors avoided eye contact as they ate each bite. At Truckee Lake, the Graves family clung to life in their makeshift cabin. Franklin Graves, the patriarch, had crafted snowshoes for the Forlorn Hope group, sacrificing his own materials in a desperate bid to save his family. As weeks passed, Franklin succumbed to starvation, leaving his wife and children to fend for themselves. Desperation soon drove the Graves family to join others in consuming the dead. Accounts suggest that Mrs. Graves resisted at first, but eventually relented to feed her starving children. Her daughter, Mary, later recounted the horror of slicing into her father's remains, stating that she had to push away her revulsion to survive. Among the most infamous figures in the Donner Party's story was Louis Keseberg, a German immigrant who became the subject of dark rumors. When rescuers arrived at the camp, Keseberg was found alive, but surrounded by the remains of the dead. Keseberg claimed he had been forced to consume human flesh to survive, but others accused him of taking pleasure in the act. Some even suggested he had killed a fellow survivor to prolong his own life, though these claims were never proven. Years later, Keseberg would live out his days as a social pariah, haunted by the accusations. Perhaps the most haunting aspect of the Donner Party's tragedy was the impact on its youngest members. Children who once played in the sunlight now huddled in freezing darkness, their laughter replaced by hollow cries of hunger. Rescuers later described the children as eerily silent and skeletal, their eyes vacant. One rescuer, John Stark, carried 2 children in his arms and led others by hand to safety, refusing to abandon any of them despite their frail condition. For many of these children, survival came at the cost of their innocence, as they were forced to witness and partake in acts that would scar them for life. These accounts are but fragments of the horror endured by the Donner Party. Each survivor carried the weight of what they had done and what they had lost, until the end of their days. Their stories remind us of the razor-thin line between humanity and survival, where desperation can strip away the very essence of who we are. The tragedy of the Donner Party was not the result of a single error, but a confluence of factors, environmental, human, and psychological, that combined to create one of the most harrowing tales of survival in American history. To truly understand what happened in those frozen mountains, we must examine the choices made, the forces at play, and the limits of human endurance. At the heart of the Donner Party's misfortune was a fateful decision to take the Hastings Cutoff. This supposed shortcut was promoted by Lansford Hastings in his guidebook, The Emigrant's Guide to Oregon and California. Hastings, eager to establish his reputation as a trailblazer, exaggerated the benefits of his route, claiming it was faster and easier than the established California Trail. In reality, the Hastings Cutoff was a poorly scouted and treacherous path. It added over 125 miles to the journey, forcing the pioneers to navigate through the arid Great Salt Lake Desert and the steep, rocky passes of the Wasatch Mountains. Each delay cost the Donner Party precious time, pushing them dangerously close to winter in the Sierra Nevada. The Sierra Nevada mountains are known for their breathtaking beauty, but also for their brutal winters. Snowstorms in the region can dump several feet of snow in a single day. effectively cutting off all routes of escape. In 1846, an early and exceptionally harsh winter descended on the mountains, sealing the fate of the Donner Party. By the time the group reached the Sierra, they were already weeks behind schedule. When the first heavy snowstorm hit in late October, it blocked the path over the summit, trapping the pioneers in a desolate and inhospitable environment. The snow not only prevented movement, but also buried potential food sources, leaving the group entirely dependent on their dwindling supplies. Supplies had been a concern long before the group reached the Sierra Nevada. The delays caused by the Hastings cutoff, combined with the grueling conditions of the trail, left the party dangerously low on provisions. Livestock weakened and died, forcing the pioneers to abandon wagons and supplies along the way. Once stranded, their food supplies quickly ran out. They resorted to boiling oxhide, consuming bark and twigs, and even eating small rodents in their desperate attempts to stave off starvation. The lack of foresight and preparation left the group vulnerable to the harsh realities of the wilderness. The physical challenges were compounded by the psychological toll of the journey. Months of hardship, hunger, and exposure frayed the nerves of even the most resilient individuals. Disputes over leadership and decision-making created divisions within the group. The isolation of their predicament also intensified feelings of despair. Each snowstorm drove home the reality that they were utterly cut off from the outside world. Hunger and cold eroded their ability to think clearly, leading to desperate and, at times, irrational decisions. The strain of starvation may have even driven some to extreme behaviors, including accusations of murder and betrayal. Perhaps the most haunting aspect of the Donner Party's ordeal was the descent into cannibalism. For many, the decision to consume human flesh was not made lightly. Survivors later described it as an act born of sheer necessity, with most adhering to a grim code of ethics, to only consume those who had already died of natural causes. The psychological impact of this choice cannot be overstated. Survivors carried immense guilt and shame, haunted by the memories of what they had done to survive. This moral descent highlights the fragility of the human psyche when faced with the ultimate fight for survival. By the time the Donner Party's plight became known, the snow-covered mountains made rescue missions extraordinarily difficult. Several rescue parties set out from Fort Sutter in California, but each faced their own challenges navigating the frozen wilderness. The delay in reaching the survivors meant that the group's most desperate days stretched into weeks, compounding the horrors they endured. The story of the Donner Party is more than a grim chapter in American history. It is a reflection of human resilience, ambition, and the fragile line that separates survival from tragedy. Beneath the layers of snow and time, their ordeal leaves us with lessons about the dangers of hubris, the power of nature, and the moral questions that emerge when life hangs by a thread. The decision to take the Hastings cutoff serves as a stark warning about the dangers of overconfidence and blind trust in untested promises. The allure of a shortcut, bolstered by Lansford Hastings' self-serving assurances, led the Donner Party into uncharted and treacherous terrain. This miscalculation not only delayed their journey but ultimately sealed their fate. Their story underscores the importance of informed decision-making and the risks of placing ambition above caution. It reminds us that the choices we make in moments of confidence can ripple through time, often with unforeseen consequences. The Sierra Nevada mountains, majestic and beautiful, proved to be an unforgiving barrier. The early arrival of winter, with its relentless snowstorms, trapped the Donner Party in an inescapable frozen prison. Their plight is a chilling reminder of nature's indifference to human plans and dreams. Despite our technological advances, the natural world remains a force beyond our control. The Donner Party's experience serves as a humbling reminder that even our best laid plans can be undone by nature's unpredictability. In the face of isolation and starvation, the Donner Party's descent into chaos reveals how thin the veneer of civilization can be. Stripped of the comforts and structures of society, their story lays bare the primal instincts that emerge when survival becomes paramount. The transition from cooperative pioneers to individuals consumed by desperation shows how fragile the bonds of community can become under extreme stress. Yet, even in their darkest moments, some clung to their humanity, refusing to harm others even when survival seemed impossible. The cannibalism that marked the Donner Party's ordeal forces us to confront difficult moral questions. How far would we go to stay alive? Would we sacrifice our principles, our humanity, for another day? For the survivors, these choices left scars that lasted a lifetime, not just on their bodies, but on their souls. Though they made these choices out of necessity, the weight of those decisions followed them long after they left the mountains. Their story challenges us to grapple with the complexities of morality under unimaginable circumstances. Today, the site of the Donner Party's ordeal is marked by a peaceful lake and towering pine trees. It is hard to imagine the horrors that unfolded there, but their story continues to resonate, reminding us of the risks of unbridled ambition and the need to respect the forces beyond our control. As we reflect on their journey, we are reminded of the courage it takes to face the unknown, the strength it takes to endure the unimaginable, and the importance of humility in the face of nature's power. This tragedy is more than a story of survival. It is a haunting reflection of the choices we make, the risks we take, and the fragile line that separates humanity from desperation. Their legacy endures, etched into the mountains, the snow, and the memory of a nation. For more fascinating horror, hit the like button and subscribe.